me take you somewhere, and there's something new. Why English is welcome so good. It's Diction Avenue, Diction Avenue. This is a word where English language is taught, the official language that everyone needs to learn. Set it right pronunciation and we use the right intonation. So express yourself. It's Diction Avenue, Diction Avenue.
Okay, wake up to the world with vision. They say a nation get perished without the vision. In Diction Avenue, we got the mission, vision to build tomorrow's future. Speak with good English is our culture. We got qualified teachers, good facilities to build confidence in our students. Don't be told, come witness it, treasure you can't measure. Welcome to the world.
And there's something new. Why English is welcome so good. It's Diction Avenue, Diction Avenue.
Hi there, good afternoon, and welcome to today's edition of Diction Avenue. This is the show, the #1 show on television, where you learn how to speak right, and sound English. My name is Abigail Anaba, and as usual on the show today, we'll be taking a sound. We'll be learning a new sound today. We'll also be taking stories that teach. But before all of that, we will be starting off, as we usually do, with our question of the day. And what is our question of the day? As I said, it has to do with our sound of the day. And there you have it. Which of the following words does not contain the sound of the day? You can see the sound right there. That's a ow sound. Which of the following words does not contain the ow sound? So it's for you to decide, is it A, B, C, or D? Which of the 4 words does not contain the ow sound? You know the drill. Send your answers to the number 0805 584 9525, and that's the number right there on your screen. The number is 0805 584 9525. Do not forget to include your name and where you are texting us from. Of course, at the end of the program, we'll provide the answer to that question, and during the show, we would get to hear your own answer to the question before we give out the correct answer. As you may have already noticed, we are taking a new sound today, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show. And today we are taking the sound ow. That's the sound on display. The sound is ow. The only difficulty that I noticed that people have with producing the sound, ordinarily it should be a very easy sound to produce. But the only difficulty I've noticed with people who try to produce the sound is that because our native languages, most of our African native languages, do not have diphthongs in them, people tend to give this diphthong a single sound instead of a double sound. So instead of going ow, most people would just give it the very first sound, and they end up saying words with the ow sound as if it has just one sound. And of course, they pick the first sound they hear, which is ah. So you may have heard people speaking, and when they want to say a recount, for instance, as an example of a word that has a ow sound, they'll go recant. I can't recant the story instead of recount. So that's a difficulty that some people have, given this sound just one sound instead of two. If you're to say the sound correctly, you must glide from the first sound to the second. The first sound is ah. It is shortened there because you don't have the length mark, so ah, and ends in o. So when you put it together, you have ow, ow, ow. And that's the sound that we are taking today. Of course, we're going to take word examples for the sound, and I must mention at this point that two spelling variants we usually find for this sound. Two spelling variants, and it's usually OU and OW. So we're starting with the very first word, and you can see the word right there on display. The word is about. About. What you notice about what you notice about this, about the word about, is that the first sound is faint. In fact, so faint that you can barely hear it. But the second part, which contains the diphthong, is said out loud. About, about, about. So we're going to look at a sentence example for the word about, and that's it. She was always complaining about everything. She was always complaining about everything. You would notice that when we say complaining, there is no break between complaining and about, because if you remember the rule of words connect, when a word ends in a consonant and the next begins in a vowel, you string them together. So complaining about, complaining about. She was always complaining about everything. So our target word there is about, about, ow, being the sound that we're looking at. Now we're going to take another word example, and this time we're looking at OW as the spelling variant for the ow sound, and there you have the word crowded. 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 I have to mention at this point that even though, I always say this on every edition of this show, that you cannot rely on spelling to determine how a word is pronounced. You must always use the dictionary and check the transcription. And that's why for every word that we write, we'll give you the transcription right in front, so you can see the sound and how it is transcribed. Because you can't just decide that a word is pronounced a particular way because of how it's spelled. If we take a look at the word crowded that we just took just now, crowded, if you take away the DED from crowded, the word that you have is not crow, but crow. So you need to be very careful that you do not depend on spelling to determine how a word is pronounced. So the word is crowded. Crowded. Take note of the final part of that word. It's not crowded, it's crowded. Did. Crowded. And that's a sentence example we have right there. Pepple had never seen such crowded places in her life. Pepple had never seen such crowded places in her life. Crowded. Of course, the word crowded means a place that is full of people. There is so much human traffic or whatever traffic, but it's many, and there are many people there or many things there, so it's crowded. Of course, in this age of coronavirus, we want to avoid crowded places, so you need to be careful, right? Avoid crowded places. But that's the word crowded. We're going to take another example now, and we're back to OU as the spelling variant, and this time the word you're taking is another word that begins with the letter A, around. 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 Just like about, the first sound is almost non-existent. So you go round, around, around, around. Go ahead, try it. The word is not around, rather it's round. And if you're having a difficulty with the OU sound there, remember that the OU sound is ow, ow. Well, I'm sure you may have heard some people say arant. And that again is a function of the fact that they're not able to articulate diphthongs, two sounds in one. So you need to be very careful if you're one of those who has this challenge with the sound ow, giving it just one sound. Then you need to be careful. You need to keep practicing ow, ow. Make sure you glide from the first sound to the second. Ow, ow, around. Now let's look at the sentence example for the word around. And here we have, Pepple saw many flies hover around a dog. Pepple saw many flies hover around a dog. Now, if you look at the sentence from hover around, again, you see an example of a word ending in the sound r, hover. Of course, the word hover similarly ends in a vowel, but because of the R at the end of that word, you link it with the next word, hover around. Sometimes this is called a linking R, and it works with words connect. So you won't go hover around as if it's two different words. To bring them together, hover around. And in fact, from hover around to the end of the sentence, you say it as if it's one word. Hover around the dog. Hover around the dog. And that's how that sentence goes. Pepple saw many flies hover around a dog. Right. We're going to take another word example, and this time we're looking at the word house. Two things I've noticed with how people pronounce this word. First, a lot of people drop the initial H in this word, and they end up going house. And then, of course, those who drop the one of the sounds in the diphthong ow, and you hear has. So both are not correct. The initial H is not dropped. You can see it in the transcription there. So that's how you begin saying the word. And then you add the house, 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 house. Right, so that's how the word is pronounced, house. Remember that when you add an S at the end of this word to make it plural, it's the final S becomes a Z sound. I've talked about that principle in earlier episodes of Diction Avenue, that when you make a word plural and it comes immediately after a vowel, then it becomes Z. So it becomes houses, houses for the plural form. Now let's look at the sentence example there. She returned to her house. She returned to her house. She returned to her house. So that's the target word there, house. Remember, do not drop the initial H. Do not make the diphthong a monophthong. Say it loud and clear. Ow, how, house. Right? And that's how you pronounce that word. Moving on now, we have we have more words to take, of course. This time we're looking at OW again as a spelling variant for the ow sound. And there you have the word how, how. As in house, a lot of people also drop the initial H in how. And so you hear ow. So it's not ow, it's how. This words that we've been taking has a lot to do with aspiration, and some people do have a challenge with aspirating sounds. And so sometimes they will drop the H where it's supposed to be, and at other times they will include an H where it's not supposed to be. So it's something that you could work on to achieve not aspirating when you're not supposed to, or aspirating when you're not supposed to. It's something that you can work on. And I must tell you at this point that Ecom has a course which helps with aspiration. So if you have a challenge with aspiration, you can log on to our website and check out the course that has to do with taking care of what popularly referred to as the H factor. I'm sure you'd learn a thing or two. Just go to ecom.ng and look up that course and see how you can benefit from it. We move right on, and a sentence for the word how is how wrong I was. How wrong I was. So you can see the exclamation mark there. How wrong I was. So the word is how. 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 Right, so take note of the OW. Now we're going to move to some word examples that can be a little tricky, and we need to pay attention to the following examples that we're going to take, because you would notice when I start giving the word examples that a lot of people have different ways to pronounce this word, and we're going to find out whether they're right or wrong. So the next word we're taking is the word power. 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 You may hear some people say pa for this word. Well, it's not wrong. But if you're saying pa, then it means that you subscribe to the school of thought that believes that there are certain sounds called triphthongs. Well, if you do not belong to that school of thought, then you would go power, seeing this sound as a diphthong and the schwa. Power. 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 Like I mentioned, if you go pa, it's not wrong. But for this particular example and for the sound ow, we're taking the variant that goes power, power, power. And so that's how you take that, you say that word. And we're going to look at a sentence example for the word power. And our sentence goes, he has lost his power of speech. I hope none of us does lose their power of speech. It can be very painful, but that's what the sentence says here. He has lost his power of speech. Power being the word power. Power. Right. Now we're going to take 3 more word examples. Remember that always at the end of the show, at the end of giving my spelling variants and word examples, I usually like to add 3 words that you may decide to add to your vocabulary. So here goes the 3 words. The first word is towel. Yeah, so if you're one of those who have been saying towel for this word, no, it's not towel, it's towel. And so you can replace the T there with any vowel or any consonant, and you'll still get the ow, which is why we don't say vowel, we say vowel. We don't say bowel, we say bow. So you talk about bowel movement, you talk about your towel, and you talk about the vowel sound. So take note of that. Towel, towel. You may repeat the word, repeat it over and over until you get used to it. Towel, towel. Of course, the next word we have there is devour. 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 Some people go devour. Well, the word is devour. Devour. And the final word we have there is flour. I know a lot of people go floor. Well, the word is not floor, it's flour. 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 And so we have our various word examples for the ow sound. If you have been watching right from the beginning of the show, we did say that there are 2 different ways in which the ow sound is spelled, and that's OU and OW. And we've taken all the spelling word examples and sentence examples to drive home the point that ow is spelled with OU and OW. I'm sure that you can come up with some more words with an ow sound. Why don't you go right ahead? Think of more words, and when you think of the words spelled OU or OW, go ahead and check your dictionary to be sure that it actually says the sound ow. Look out for the the transcription and make sure that the transcription has the ow sound in it. Well, we're going to take a short break now for stories that teach. But before we do that, we're going to recall our question of the day. And so that you may participate, you may think about the answer to that question and send it in. So we are going to be getting the question of the day in just a bit. Right there it is. Which of the following words does not contain the ow sound? So what do you think? Is it A, B, C, or D? Which does not contain the ow sound? Do not forget to send in your answer to 0805 584 9525. Do not forget to include your name and where you're texting us from. Remember, the number is for text message only. We're going to take that break now for stories that teach, and today we're going to learn about a grumpy elephant whose name is Pebble. Don't go away.
Grumpy Pebble. Pebble was a baby elephant who was always grumpy. She was never satisfied with anything she had. She would complain and murmur about everything: her clothes, her shoes, her hair, her school, and even her mama's cooking. Mama Elephant didn't like Pebble's attitude. She knew she had to learn to be thankful. She began to think of the best way to show her how not to be grumpy. So one day, when Pebble complained and whined about how small their house was compared to that of her friend Debbie, and how it would have been so much better if they had a bigger and more beautiful house, Mama Elephant took her on a ride to a very remote part of town. Pebble had never seen such crowded places in her life. The houses were small and cramped. The neighbors could see right into each other's windows. It was almost as if they lived in each other's houses. There were many on the street, some of them with no shoes on. Their clothes were old and worn, and they looked very dirty and hungry. Pebble saw many flies hover around the dog sitting on the pavement. She wondered if this dog had ever had a bath. When they got back to the house, Pebble could not hold back her tears. "I can't believe there are other elephants my age who don't have half as much as I do. I always felt like I had nothing and that my life was miserable. Oh, how wrong I was. I have been ungrateful. I'm so sorry for always being grumpy. I promise I'll never do that again. I am glad you learned your lesson." The end.
Well, I hope you learned a lesson there too, to be grateful for whatever you have, because there are people out there who do not have as much as you do, even as there are those who have more than you do. So the important thing is to be grateful and not to be grumpy. Right. So the sound we're taking for today is the sound ow, and just before the break we gave out our question of the day for a second time. We're going to take that question one more time, and that's it. Which of the following words does not contain the ow sound? And you have all the words there, A, B, C, and D. Which do you think it is? Which does not have the ow sound? Well, do not forget to include your name and where you're texting us from. When you do, send your correct answer to 0805 584 9525. And this is about that time that I would look at the phone lines to see the answers that have been sent in. And I'm really happy that the very first answer I got today is the correct one. And this is Chinasa Ume from Jos. Your answer is absolutely correct. Well done, Chinasa. I have a lot of people who did not include your name, so I can't read out your answer. I mean, if you did not include your name and where you're texting us from, then sorry, I can't read your answer. This is Heritage Udoka from Ishaga, Lagos, also with a correct answer. Well done, Heritage. The next answer I have here is from Nsikak Udo from Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. Unfortunately, your answer is wrong, Nsika. Thank you for sending it in anyway. This is, did I just lose that? It just jumped right out of my site. Okay, let me pick this answer, and this is, oh dear. I'm getting so many answers coming in at the same time that it's difficult for me to pick one. Okay, this is Solomon Louis from Kola Taiwo Street, who also gave us a correct answer. Well done. This is Bello Oluwa Fumibi from Agbele Abulegba with a wrong answer. Well done. Thank you for sending in your answer. This is Nathaniel from Ejigbo in Lagos, also with a correct answer. This is, my name is Chidima from Port Harcourt. Well, Chidima from Port Harcourt, thanks for sending in your answer, but it is wrong. I think I'm going to take one or two more. This is someone from Kwara State. Bifo Barakat from Kwara State. Well done. Correct answer. And finally, this is Adewale Michael from Okuku, Osun State, with a correct answer. Well done. So what is the correct answer to the question? Well, we'll have the question come up again, and we're going to look at the various words that we have there. Which of the following words does not contain the ow sound? If you said A, then no, you're wrong. A contains the ow sound because A is pronounced flower. If you said B, flower also, so you're wrong. If you said C, C is trout. It's a type of fish. So you're wrong. The correct answer is D. Though. Of all the words there, it's only option D that does not contain the sound ow. So the answer, the correct answer is D. Well, that's how far we can go on Diction Avenue today. Thanks for joining us from all over the country. Like I always say at the end of the show, if you desire to speak right, sound English, Ecom has an array of courses that can help you do just that. Just log on to our website, www.ecom.ng, and find out for yourself different courses, including master classes that would help you speak right, and sound English. For as low as 5,000 Naira, you can do that. And so, until I come your way again next week with another sound, another question, and another story that will teach, my name is Abigail Anaba. See you next week.
Let me take you somewhere, and there's something new. Why English is welcome so good. It's Diction Avenue, Diction Avenue. This is a word where English language is taught, the official language that everyone needs to learn. Set it right pronunciation, and we use the right intonation. So express yourself. It's Diction Avenue, Diction Avenue.
Okay, wake up to the world with vision. They say nation get perished without the vision. In Diction Avenue, we got the